Yeah, let's get started and talk about the news, guys. I think we can put a pause on the music for a second because we need to switch over to the news music. That's right, the Muse music. All right, so let me go ahead and switch that over. Whoa, wait, what happened? Where? Why is the screen black? Now, come on, what's going on? Come on. Hello? Hello? Nothing. Wait, what's that? Is it? It can't be. Oh, man. It's GreedyWaffle! Yeah, boy. Yeah, boy. Yeah. You like that intro? I was working on it. That's what I was working on before the podcast Rooney started. I hope everyone enjoyed that. It was it was a quick little put together type thing. Is Greedy Waffle there?
Yes, he is here, ready to go.
He's here, ready to go. How are you doing today, Greedy Waffle?
I am fantastic.
Did you like my
Nice.
Did you like my intro for you? I put a
I,
lot of
I
work into it.
I did. I like the salad, the lettuce, and, and the Lombardi trophy.
So, if everyone, well, introduce yourself, Greedy, because some people might not know you.
Well, I am Yemmy's friend. I don't do YouTube or anything, so or Twitch. I love football, American football to be precise. And yeah, I don't know, don't know what else to say.
Well, Nick is our resident NFL expert, right?
Yes.
He came on to the podcast a few weeks ago for YemmyCast, and we talked about our predictions for the playoffs. And now the playoffs are all over, right? And now we're getting
Yes.
ready for the Super Bowl this weekend. That's right, the NFL Super Bowl. I know everyone's like, yeah, Yemmy, this isn't video game news, you noob. Eh,
But no,
it's important news, and also Madden is a video game, so it all ties together. Is it really a video game though? I don't know.
no.
But anyways, I wanted to get Greedy on here to do our Super Bowl predictions and also talk about some playoff games that we really enjoyed. As I said, we're in the sports room right now, guys, so it's all sports talk all the time, and we gotta drink brewskis with the bros and talk about
yeah.
Peyton Manning and how funny he is, right?
And his big forehead.
Yeah, his big forehead. Slap that bitch. Anyways, so I thought we might as well start with our top two. Each of us will pick two playoff games that we really liked, and we'll talk about them for a little bit. And then we'll get into our Super Bowl predictions, which is the 49ers versus the Chiefs. Nick, why don't you choose first? Which playoff game tickled your pickle?
Actually, my first tickle pickle is from the first week of the playoff round. Is the AFC wild card round. It was Houston, Texas against the Buffalo Bills, and this game went into overtime.
A lot of the playoff games went into overtime, crazily enough.
Only two.
Only two? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, it was during the wild card weekend, so, you know.
Yeah.
I agree. This game was a really good game, a very competitive game for both teams. But as I predicted, Josh Allen fumbled the ball to pretty much end the game. Pretty much. Was I right or was I right?
You were right on that one.
So what stuck? Why did this game tickle your pickle so much?
Because I mean, it was too I thought the Bills, the way the Bills were playing, I thought they were gonna, just come out and destroy Texas. And you know me, how I've been hating on Houston all year because Deshaun Watson kind of screwed me in fantasy a couple times this year. But I thought Buffalo Bills were gonna come out and just guns blazing, and I also enjoyed it because it was really a defensive game, but it still had enough offense that where it was satisfying. Not like last year's Super Bowl where it was like 10-3 or whatever. But this one, I think it was a well balanced game, and it's what I enjoy is like, a last minute win, in overtime, and or not, I shouldn't say a last minute win, but like an overtime win, and it was just like, two teams that were fighting to stay alive, and unfortunately, Buffalo Bills lost that, but
Yeah. Of course, I've been a fan of Houston all year, like you know, and I was expecting the Houston to take them to town, but this game started off really lopsided. The Bills
hmm
had what? They were up by like what was it, 14 or something like that, 17 at the end of the
yeah,
half, and just I mean, kind of like another game that we might talk about later. It was just like one of those things that's like, well, Houston's out of this one, and then all of
yeah,
a sudden Watson, as I predicted, came back and showed everyone what playing football is all about. It's all about strategy and just being good at the position that you're in. And Houston really came back in a pretty brilliant way, to be honest with you. But
yeah.
as I'll probably talk about later, Houston just they don't want to use their weapons. Like how many throws
Seems
went to
like it.
not Deshaun Hopkins? How many shots went to Hopkins? How many times did Johnson run the ball? Hardly ever. Johnson was their best running back this year. Even though Hyde had the ball most of the time, it was Johnson who was making the biggest plays, and they hardly used him. So I think that's one of the downfalls of the Texans. As for the Bills, I just think they're not ready yet. I think Josh Allen, he's a good quarterback, but he's kind of like he makes a few too many mistakes, and of course he fumbles the ball in the worst possible situations, and that's it for that.
Yeah, yeah. He really does need to clean up those fumbling habits, and yeah, I think next year they have a good running back, but if they work on that offensive line, I know he was running around a lot, and if they get receivers, I think receivers will really be a huge upgrade
Well,
if
that's
they
the
get it.
same thing for Houston. The Bills weren't really using Cole Beasley, and I feel
Yeah,
like he's one of their better receivers. He was on my fantasy team. He got me at least 10 to 15 points every week. He was a really good receiver. But I think he got 2 throws to him this game, and that was it. And I was like, yeah, if you don't use your weapons, you're gonna lose the war.
yeah. Well, I mean, that comes down to great defense, taking those weapons out of play.
That's true. Very true, Nick. Speaking of defenses taking those weapons out of play, one game that tickled my pickle was the Ravens versus the Titans,
Ooh,
which happened in the second round of the playoffs. It was a miserable experience for Ravens fans. Do you agree?
yes, because the hype was so real, and everyone thought they were going all the way because their season, the whole season, which might be they lost to the Browns. Um, their season was just like fantastic. Like they couldn't ask for a better season, and then they literally laid an egg. Like this was their first game, Baltimore's for the playoffs. It was Tennessee's second game, but still, it's like that 2 weeks break. I want to say was just cooled them off too much. I think.
Technically, it was a 3 weeks break for the Ravens
Lamar
starters
Jackson.
for
Yeah.
pretty much all of them, and they came out and they just didn't seem prepared. I mean, just nothing seemed to click for the Ravens. But the Titans, even though they had a little bit of a slow start, they really punched them in the face once they started going. And as I was saying during our podcast last time about the playoffs, when it comes down to it, some teams just need to keep going. They don't want, if you give them a break, then they run out of steam. But if you keep them going, like the Titans, the Titans destroyed the Patriots. Like in the last seconds of that game, huge pick by the Titans, totally destroyed Tom Brady and the rest of them. And then in
And
this game, they pretty much steamrolled the Ravens. It really wasn't even competitive at the end of it all.
yeah, I mean, Derrick Henry, the Tennessee Titans running back, literally just ended New England Patriots dynasty, which is great.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining.
Henry was one of my favorite players to watch in the playoffs, and unfortunately against the Chiefs, they kind of stuttered and spurred out. But the way the Chiefs are playing, it's hard to beat them right now. Just ask Houston.
Yeah, no, for sure. That is really just ask Houston.
All right, Nikki,
All right,
what's another one that tickled your pickle?
so going back to the first round again, the second overtime win Ooh, both overtimes, huh? Getting what I'm picking down?
I ain't getting what you're picking down. I already have it pulled up on YouTube.
The Minnesota Vikings and the New Orleans Saints. Week 1. And the Saints, again, were kind of in the same scenario as Baltimore Ravens. They had such a fantastic season, and then I can't say they laid an egg because it went in overtime, but it just was like a shocker that Minnesota Vikings, who were like not favored to go far at all, just kind of upset the New Orleans Saints. It was
Oh
just
yeah.
kind of weird, and it's probably Drew Brees' last game.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Hmm. I mean, he still was playing really well up to this point in the game. Uh, Fun fact, and I think they said this during the game when it was actually being played. I believe that this was the first fumble that the Saints had was at the end of the last play that they had during the overtime was like the first fumble they had in like months, games. And it
Yeah.
was Drew Brees who fumbled it because the defender came around, smacked his arm, and it made him like clench up or something like that too much on the ball, and it flipped out of his hand. And that was one of the deciding factors of the game. And then also, as I predicted, last play to Kyle Rudolph. Woo! Swish! Now, also, this also brings up more controversy for the Saints fans because there might have been a little bit of pass interference, but it was on both sides anyway, so that the penalties would have offset themselves because both players were kind of pushing each other. But I mean, that's just for Saints fans to cry about for the next for the remaining part of the year.
As always.
Yeah, I mean the Saints have kind of had a bad like the last 3 or so playoffs. They just had bad luck at the end of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? You're gonna go out there and win games like the fucking team you're supposed to be. The Saints and the Ravens messed up my playoff bracket so hardcore that
Yes.
it was over pretty much before it even started. And
Yep.
I think that's just a testament to how random and lucky teams have to be to even like get this far, and then also just how any team can beat any team. Like you said earlier, the Browns beat the Ravens early this year. Like what the Browns went like what 4-10 or something like that. It was awful, but we beat the
And
Ravens.
what if the Ravens, have their hot streak again next, season, and like, they go 16-0, let's say, or 15-1, and then people will be like, well, they still have no playoff experience, and then they'll be like, well, are they gonna win? Are they gonna lose? Like, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. That's for sure. All right, the last game that I want to talk about is actually a game that we watched together as we usually do, I believe. And it was the final round. I believe it was the AFC playoffs, right? And it was the Chiefs versus the no it was the Texans. I apologize. I thought wrong. This was the first bout for the Chiefs in the playoffs, and it started off abysmally for the Chiefs. I believe Houston was up 24-0, and then at the end, like right before the half ended, I believe Patrick Mahomes went down the field and scored real quickly, like once or twice. I forget what it was, and that's what jump started the Chiefs and got them back in the order. And this display of talent from the Chiefs, and I mean, I guess from the first half of the Texans, really shows that these two teams were primed and ready to go to the playoffs, and they were ready to maybe get to the Super Bowl. But one team floundered in the end, and it was a team that we all kind of expected to flounder, and that was the Texans. Whereas the Chiefs, even though they failed the first part of it, as you know, football is 4 quarters, and you can't win just by playing well in the first two. You got to go all the way. Any thoughts on this game, Nikki?
Lots of thoughts. It was just crazy, Houston coming out, just I think they said like they scored 3 times in like 3 minutes or something like that. Texas, Houston did.
Yeah.
And it was just like Kansas City started off slow. And as you'll hear later on, is just the way Kansas City is always starting slow is kind of worrisome. But then it's like Kansas City's offense is so explosive. I mean, the defense did get a pick six or a couple interceptions, but I mean that helps a lot. But it was just like the flow of the game was all for Houston, and then all of a sudden, the snap of a finger was all for Kansas City, and then Houston had a little comeback, And then it was like just crazy how the flow of the game just shifted so much.
Yeah.
Just it was like Houston, Houston, Houston. Oh, Kansas City, Kansas City. It's just like they once they click, they're just unstoppable.
Yeah, it was like kind of like whitewater rafting, right? Like all of a sudden,
Yeah.
just everything just exploded for the Chiefs, and it never got easy for the Texans again. But yeah, it was a great game, classic game. A lot of these playoff games were classic games. The Vikings versus the Saints, this game right here, the Texans versus the Chiefs, even the Chiefs versus the Titans and the 49ers versus Green Bay were just classic games, and you really wonder if these games will be really go down in history. But I every year there's games like this where you're like, oh, this is gonna go down in history, and then like no one talks about them ever again. But it's fun to watch them, live like we do, and I think we'll remember some of these games for at least a few years, I'm sure.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, they were definitely eventful, I should say. And
Yeah.
I'm just glad that it wasn't like Patriots, just steamrolling like they always do.
Right.
But they got kicked out first round, and I think that's what made it better. It's the Patriots getting kicked out.
All right, let's go to the main event. We're going to talk about Super Bowl IV. Oh wait, no, LLLIIV. Whatever. I don't. Fuck this logo. We're talking about the Super Bowl this year. What's what the? Okay, so the Super Bowl. That's right. It's the 49ers versus the Chiefs. They actually met, and I'm actually showing it right now, earlier in the year, and I believe that the 49ers ended up winning this one. If I'm right.
I don't recall. I don't
Let me
remember.
look at the. Let me skip to the end. No, the Chiefs won. The Cheeseheads won. Well, not the Cheeseheads. The Green Bay's out. Anyways, what are your predictions and thoughts about this Super Bowl? Is this going to be a classic one to remember?
I mean, my thoughts are all over the place. It's a lot of what ifs. Like what if this happens? If this happens, then this team's gonna win, or if that happens, this team's gonna win. So my prediction is, I think Kansas City's gonna take it, but part of me says San Francisco's gonna be it because where do I start? So San Francisco, they've been so like most consistent team this season, if you could agree with that.
I do.
Because they just been so dominant. The offense has been good. However, for Kansas City, they've been the most explosive offense by scoring, within the snap of a finger. They get like 5 touchdowns on 5 drives, which is insane for NFL football. But it's like my outtake is San Francisco's defense is probably the best defense they faced this offseason or the playoffs. So that defense, and especially that defensive line, if they could get to Patrick Mahomes, then they would win. But that defense cannot stop Patrick Mahomes. I think Kansas City is going to win. For San Francisco, if their San Francisco's running game has been so good, which you saw in the Green Bay game, they just ran all over Green Bay. So if Kansas City's defensive line cannot stop the run game, I think San Francisco might have a good chance. So pretty much what teams matter is the Chiefs' offensive line versus the San Francisco's defensive line. So
a normal football game.
no, it's not the normal football game because if their secondary is good, that means the passing game is going to be good. But if that defensive line can get to Patrick Mahomes, then it's over pretty much. And if that offensive line can stop the players from getting Patrick Mahomes, then that's how it is.
All right. One little aside. Thank you, Chop the Dog, for the host. I appreciate it. I hope you're doing well today. And also, Callus, thank you for joining the stream as well. Hope you're doing well indeed. Hope you guys are doing well. My thoughts. So if the playoffs are anything to look at and judge what the Super Bowl is going to be like, we saw the Chiefs starting off very slow in both the games that they played during the playoffs. San Francisco started off very, very strong in the 2 games that they played, and they dominated over the Vikings, but Green Bay actually had a little bit of a comeback in the second round. I predict that, once again, the Chiefs are going to start off a little slow. Maybe they'll get a touchdown early on with a big play from Patrick Mahomes or something like that. But I feel like the 49ers defense and Nick Bosa are going to be able to hold them back. But things are going to start kind of getting out of control during the second half of the game, where it's just going to be both teams kind of scoring back and forth because both teams are getting tired and more tired because both teams are. I mean, these are two teams that are like, boom, punch you in the face. You know, even though it's funny, the announcers during the Green Bay Packers game versus the 49ers, they're like, oh, they should be throwing the ball more. They aren't throwing the Garoppolo hasn't thrown the ball at all. It's like the times he did throw the ball during that game, they were pretty good passes. But the running game worked. And when the running game works, just keep going for it. It's just like with Henry with the Titans. If Henry's running well and he's able to break through these lines, keep him going. Keep feeding the ball. Same thing with this. If the 49ers can get that run game going and it's a good run game, don't worry about what the analytics are saying. Yeah, try and do a few pass plays here and there the fake them out. But in the end, if the running game's the most dominant thing about your offense, punch the ball in there. Don't be like the Browns this past year, all right? We had two of the best running backs in the game, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. And what we do? We barely ran with them. That's why they did not get the best running yards through the regular season because, oh, guess what? We're at the goal line. Better pass it to Odell Beckham 5 times in a row. No, what was it? Like 6 to 7 times in a row that one time. It was ridiculous. I was like, what are you guys doing? You have like 9 plays where you could get the ball into the end zone and you can't do it. Disappointing. But anyways, with the Chiefs side of things, I think that Patrick Mahomes is definitely the better quarterback. He has better timing and he has better accuracy with the ball. It's just his receivers got to catch the ball. They were very cold when they started out against the Titans and the Houston Texans, and the balls were kind of bouncing off of people's hands. And I think if the receivers and Mahomes can get in sync early on, and of course they've been in sync a lot, but sometimes things take a little bit while to warm up. And I think that if they start out hot with the big throws and the big run plays that Mahomes has been doing, once again, as you said, it's going to be a battle of the offense versus the defense there, where if the defense can't get to Mahomes or can't stop him, what are they going to do? They can't stop him. I mean, look at both of these playoff games that have happened with the Chiefs. Mahomes rolls out and you think he's just going to throw it away or go out of bounds, and he makes like a perfect pass to a guy at the goal line and they score, or something happens where they get a first down. And it's like, how do you stop something like that? It's almost impossible.
Yeah, I like Kansas City's offensive weapons better too. They got Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, which are two like electrifying guys. But I also like, I think on the 49ers offense is George Kittle, which is the tight end. He's like awesome.
He's a beast.
He's a beast. He's like Iron Man on that field.
Yeah.
But it's like,
don't forget about Deebo Smith-Samuel and
Yeah,
I forgot the other guy's name.
Yeah. So Kansas City just has, I think, more offensive weapons. But like you said, it's just, can that defense stop Kansas City? And this is going to be a great Super Bowl. I really, really do think it will be a good Super Bowl.
Run the numbers with me. What's the percentage that the game is going to end with a field goal kick?
The percentage? I don't know.
Like maybe like a 5% chance, 25% chance. Because I think it's like a high 70% chance that this game's gonna end in a field goal, whether it's in overtime or in the regular play.
I'm gonna say 65% chance. So I think there's gonna be a high chance that it ends in the field goal. I will do.
And who has a better chance of making that field goal? Because right now, I think the Chiefs have a better chance of making that game-winning field goal. Because the San Francisco 49ers field goal kicker has been a little iffy, especially in those like tight situations, like the game against Seattle. I think ended up being a missed field goal and stuff like that.
That's true. Yeah, he shanked one of them, like to the far left, like it was some Madden game.
Well, Nick, thank you for joining me on the podcast. I look forward to watching the game live with you, with wings in hand, and hopefully there's no annoying people around, laughing at all the commercials.
I can't wait for those commercials.
Can't wait for that halftime show. Woo, boy. Woo. Anyways, any last words?
Any last words? I don't know. I mean, I think my prediction, I want to give a score prediction. I did say it was going to end in the field, or has a high percentage ending in the field goal, but me personally, I don't think it will. I'm gonna say Chiefs 51, San Francisco 42.
Ooh.
I think it's gonna be a high. I think it's gonna be like
Record
opposite of
breaking.
last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be opposite of last year.
Yeah, last year broke records as the lowest scoring game. This year is going to be the highest scoring game. Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be like a 42 to like 45 or something like that, something weird like that. And I think that the Chiefs are going to knock out the 49ers. I think the Chiefs have a better team for the playoffs than the 49ers. I think the 49ers are going to kind of burn out towards the end, especially like they did against Green Day. And I think that the Chiefs are going to take advantage of that. And yeah, Green Day.
That's what you said. You said Green Day.
I know. I meant to say Bay. It's all the same. All right, Nicholas. Walk down that boulevard of broken dreams and get the fuck out of my house. Thanks for coming on again, Nick. Bye bye.
Yeah, thanks for having me. See you.